starting with...
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alba from Escrow. I'm in Alhambra at 1138 South Garfield, between Shore and San Marino Avenue, 1 block north of town.
Can't hear. Okay, so let's see.
Closer.
Closer?
Yeah.
Okay. Again,
Closer.
good morning, everyone. I'm Alba from
Closer.
Escrow in Alhambra. Our office is located at 1138 South Garfield Avenue. We're located 1 block north of Valley, between Shore and San Marino Avenue. I started Escrow in 1979. It was a blessing to be able to be in this field, and it's about 34 and a half years ago already. And I just love doing escrows. Escrow is my life. I mean, my whole world is escrow, I guess that's to say. So I enjoy doing my work. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy taking care of the files. I enjoy the whole process of it, from beginning to end, and even the drama to go with it. So it's just very exciting. And okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa James. I'm now with Viva Escrow. I've been in the business for about 13 years. Started with Central Escrow in Monterey Park, then I moved over a couple years ago to Alpha Escrow in City of Industry, but now I'm back. And Viva Escrow is in San Marino, not too far from here.
Hi, good morning. I'm Jacqueline Cheou from Champion Escrow. I've been in the business for 21 years, and I had picked Escrow because that day when I went for an interview, I actually went to 3 interviews, and the one that hired me, was the busiest office, so I picked Escrow. But like Alba, I enjoy Escrow, but besides enjoying Escrow, I also enjoy golf, and I'll be playing in the golf tournament, and hopefully you guys will be too.
Morning, everyone. I'm Annie from Inner Valley Escrow. I've been in escrow for 7.5 years, and I was originally going to be a child development major, elementary school teacher. They were handing out pink slips, so I went into escrow and I never left. For short.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alina Cheou. I'm currently working at American Trust Escrow in San Marino, but most of you might know me that I was working under Golden Escrow. That's it.
Perfect. Well, let's get started. We have some questions, and that we're going to answer, that our panelists are going to answer. We're going to start off with Alina Cheou, so you can keep the microphone that you have right in front of there. Alina, what are 3 main things an agent can do to make for an efficient escrow?
Well, as you all may know, once you get so excited, your purchase contract is signed, what is the thing that you need to do, the next step that you need to do? Well, what you should be expecting from your escrow officer, we will be asking you for you to furnish the fully executed purchase contract. Now, you may sound funny, say, oh, well, we all have produced a fully executed purchase contract, but many times a listing agent should check, oops, did I turn it off? Sorry. They should check to see if all the owners of the property signed the purchase contract. You might know that, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Smith own the property, but if you check the property records, you might see that they may have been another person on title with them. So you do have to make sure that the contract is fully executed, because if you deliver a contract that's not signed by everyone, that it's not a fully executed contract. It's not a valid contract to begin with. Now, as a buyer's agent, what we will be asking you is if you could help verify the buyer's name. You might know them by their name also, but you might even know them for 20 years. But their legal name is usually it might be different for how you know them to be. So check their ID, make sure that you have the legal name on there, and that will expedite matters too. And also let them know that when they fill out the loan application, that they keep the same name. They may tell you one name and you have one name on that contract, and then when they fill out the loan application, they have a different version. And what that would cause is down the road, when documents are drawn, that you may have a variation on the name, and then it may be more chaotic towards the end when you're trying to rush and close escrow, that all the names came out differently, and then they have to be re-signed sometimes. So it would be helpful if you could just help by checking their name. It's just simple tips that you can do to help out during the escrow process. And the third thing is just letting us know what you prefer, how would you like to have your escrow handled? Do you want us to contact your customers directly? Do you want us to just contract through you directly? So it just basically let us know how we can more effectively help you close this transaction.
Perfect, great, that was great. So, Jacqueline, why is it important before to have a good, efficient escrow, but there's some things that you can prepare with? What is important for an agent to get when they get in a listing?
I know being a good agent, many of you guys would obtain a property profile before you go out and get a listing. Now, do you also ask for the vesting deed? It is very important that you ask for the vesting deed from the title company as well, because the vesting deed will show you who should be signing your listing agreement. And eventually, it will be the same parties who will be signing the purchase agreement. It is very important because you don't want the wrong parties to be signing your contract. And like Alina mentioned earlier, if you're missing signatures or you got the wrong people signing the contract, your contract may be invalid, you know. And it is also, the vesting deed is also very important because it will show you who are actually on title. It could be held by a trust. Title could be held in a corporation or an LLC. So you can ask for the proper documentations to determine who are actually the authorized signers. You want to get the bottom line is you want to get the right persons to sign the contract. Now, I want to also remind you, when you get the contract signed, make sure you have the signer indicate the office and the entity on the signature block. So, like for example, if the person is signing on behalf of the trust, you want them to put down as trustee of the so-and-so trust. Or if they're signing on behalf of the corporation, you want them to put down like president or VP, whoever, CFO, secretary, on behalf of the corporation. You want all that verbiage on there in order to show that it was properly executed. That's the only way the people can come back later and claim that, just in case they want to get out of the contract, they can't say, your contract's not validly signed, so therefore I'm not obligated to sell. I have had a transaction where the seller tried to get out of the contract and it wasn't properly executed, so that's what their attorneys claim for them to be able to get out of the contract, so they didn't have to sell it. So don't let that happen to you.
Annie, over to you. What is a city report, and when and why would we need them, or who needs them, and who gets them?
Okay, city report is every transaction that you have. Certain cities require an inspection on the property. Some houses, like the state in LA City, they have a 9A report, and some owners will have that property for many years, and they'll put bars or start adding things that are not approved by the city. So before escrow can close, you need to get a report from the city to say that everything is clear and you're good to go, and the buyer needs to acknowledge that. It's actually the agent's responsibility to order them, but sometimes escrow, as a favor, we do it depending on which city. I know LA, I can order it online for you. I just still need the originals to be overnight in. Pasadena, they have it's called occupancy inspection. So every city is a little bit different. Some charges more than others, and make sure you just have it before you close the escrow. And how you verify which city need it is basically you call and ask. But we try to, most of the escrow company, we try to compile a list, and kind of remind you guys if you need it or not.
Good. Now I heard that Jackie was saying something about how the way you sign. So this is a question over to Alba. When is a complete copy of the trust and the amendments, if there are any, when would something like that be required?
When you have your property profile, when you look at the deed, and if it's owned by a trust, then you need to find out if it's the owners of the property and the trustors of the trust who created the trust, and if they're gonna be the trustees of the trust. If they are the owners of the trust, and they're creators of the trust, and they are also the trustees of the trust, you really do not need to have the full copy of the trust. Basically, what we will need is a certification of trust to be completed, and it has to be pursuant to the probate code section 18100.5. So that's what the title company will accept as completion. If for some reason one of the parties is deceased, and so you need to get an affidavit of a trustee, we need to get a certified copy of the death certificate. And at that point, it's best to have a copy of the trust or any amendments, because sometimes in the trust stipulate whether the surviving trustee needs to be co-signing with someone else as co-trustee, because if they're elderly, they might not be able to handle their own personal affairs. And so that's when you know that you need a copy of the trust to take a look and see if there's any co-trustees to sign with.
Perfect. Now, going over to Vanessa. Vanessa, there's something that the buyers are probably the buyer agents are gonna need to discuss with their buyers, and that is the subject of supplemental taxes. Can you explain supplemental taxes for us, and or exactly why do people get their two bills?
So, state law requires that the assessor reappraise the property whenever there's a change in ownership. And depending on, basically it's the difference between the new assessed value and or the new construction, when that happens too. It's the difference between the new assessed value and the old value. So what will happen is during certain times when we close escrow, say between January 1st and May 31st, during that period, if you close escrow, then the assessor is going to reassess, or whatever the remaining months are left in the fiscal tax year. So say we close today, in April. They will assess for May and June, because the year is from January 1st until, the second half taxes are from January 1st until June 30th. So the county will assess one supplemental tax bill for May and June. So your clients will get that supplemental bill. But then they'll also get an additional supplemental tax bill for the upcoming year. And that's in addition to the new taxes due in November. So just depending on the time of year is whether they'll get one or two. If we close in October, November, they'll only get one supplemental tax bill. Also, these bills go to the owner, the new owner. They don't go to the lender. Even if the clients have a impound account, an escrow impound account with their lender, those don't get sent to the lender. It gets sent to the buyer, the new owner. But what can happen is sometimes because the lender is estimating what the taxes are, they may have a lot of money in their escrow account. So the clients I've been hearing this a lot from other escrow officers, other companies, is you can have the client, when they get that bill, talk to their lender and see if there's enough money in their impound account. And if so, they may be willing to pay it if they forward that tax bill to them.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one. I'm glad that you mentioned it, because people, they wonder where that's coming from. And the good thing to know is that you only pay them within the first year of normally.
Well, they can also be assessed when there's new construction.
When there's new construction.
Or any change
Any change
in
in
ownership. The county will get triggered when there's a recorded deed.
Right.
Or when there's new construction, those property, the new,
Assessed value.
it gets sent.
Got it.
Any upgrades.
Perfect.
Even if it's like a new bathtub, a water heater, something like that. Whenever there's new things going on in the property and there's documents being recorded, it gets triggered.
Perfect. This leads us back to Alina. Alina, when should property, like when you're in escrow and taxes are due, when they should be paid, when should they be paid, and who should paid away, if only we could pay them away, paid, and when are they prorated by?
Okay, the property taxes, we all know when the due dates are. I think everyone in here is familiarized to the due dates of your taxes. Your first half is due by December 10th, and your second half by April 10th. But what happens when you have a transaction and the seller's gonna wonder, what should I do with the taxes? We just passed last month, was April 10th, and if your seller hasn't paid the taxes yet, what they should do is they should purchase a cashier's check and have that check payable to the county tax assessor's office or to the title company, and we have it paid through the title company. By paying through the title company, you will avoid having those taxes being withheld from their proceeds at the close of escrow. The taxes will be prorated, so once they pay it, we will prorate it from the buyers, and prorations in escrow are based on 30 days a month. So actually all prorations in escrow, like proration events also, we do prorate them on a 30-day a month period. But the best way, the county has been much better nowadays. They do report taxes paid much faster than they used to be. It used to take them 2 months and then 1 month. Now it may take them less than a month to report paid. But if you do have an escrow period that you have taxes, ask your sellers to pay them through escrow, so that way there's no withholding on taxes.
Okay, well, this leads us over to money in escrow. What is a third-party deposit and what is required as an escrow procedure, Jacqueline?
Well, anytime we get a deposit check in or a wire that comes in from a party who is not the principal party of our transaction, we require a third-party deposit instruction sign as an escrow procedure. Now, as you all know, there are many transactions out there that are cash, right? And most of these money are coming over from overseas. And you guys heard about them wiring in $50,000 each time. Well, many times these senders are not our principal party. They are a third party. So we will require the sender to sign a third party instructions for us, which basically just authorizes us to deposit the funds into the buyer's account. So it's just merely an authorization, but it's an escrow procedure. Now, a lot of people are concerned and said, if they're overseas, how do I get it signed? But it's very easy. We can just fax it to them, email it to them, and they can fax or email it back. The instructions doesn't need to be notarized, so that makes it simple. And sometimes, they're overseas and they're in China, and the signature is only in Chinese. We can also accept that. Nowadays documents can be signed in foreign language. It's no problem. It's recordable. Even the lenders accept them too. Now, also, if you have transactions where the buyer is getting a loan and some of the down payment is coming from gift funds, in that case, we also need the donor and the buyer to execute the same instructions as well.
Perfect. Well, let's keep it on the topic of money. And over to Annie. When a seller credits a buyer through escrow, what is the difference between using the terms crediting closing costs and crediting non-recurring closing costs?
Okay, the difference between the two is, aside from the wording, crediting closing costs, meaning you're crediting all of the closing costs, including reoccurring charges like their insurance for that one time, if they have any impounds and all of that. Non-recurring closing costs, meaning just one-time fees, which is escrow fee, title fee, and and any fee that they don't have to pay the monthly or the annually. It's very important when you write down on your contract when you put non-recurring or non-recurring closing costs or just closing costs, because what the seller's crediting is a big difference. And if the buyer have an impound, it's a very big difference, because then they'll be impounding their a couple months of the property tax and the hazard insurance, and make sure you explain that the difference to the seller, because seller may not know, and they might get angry at you. Why am I paying their portion of taxes and insurance?
Perfect. Alba, help us, because we've had this subject comes up a lot. When can a power of attorney be used, and can it be used with a trust?
A power attorney is usually not used, you cannot use it with a trust unless the trust specifically states that you can sign, you can use a power attorney to sign on behalf of the trustee, or the attorney in fact. Because on the trust, usually the trust consists of trustees, successor trustees, and so, or successor co-trustees. So if the main trustee cannot sign, or they're out of town, or they're ill, or whatever, the successor trustee can step in and sign on behalf of the trust, as successor trustee. Or if there's 3 different co-trustees as successors, then they have to sign. And sometimes if like person is they can handle their own business affairs, then they can go to a doctor. There will be a 2 physicians letter to state that this person is not mentally capable or just not able to handle it because they get old or they're ill. So then, or they can resign as trustee, and then the successor trustee can step in.
So the rule of thumb, and this is something that we want to stress, a power of attorney is basically, it's a specific one when it comes to real estate. I'm going to put this in, specific when it comes to real estate, and it's only used in times of absence, when somebody is either in the military or somebody's in another state or in another country visiting a relative, but it's never to be used for incapacity or in the event of death. So that's something that's real important, because a lot of people, the first idea that they think if they're having problems with the people that are signing, oh, we'll just get a power of attorney. And a power of attorney is not going to work with a trust in that regard too. There's been good money that's been spent in a trust, and it's been specified in the trust, so you don't want, anybody can fill out a power of attorney and come in there and then start to really mess with things. All right. And we have our last question. Vanessa, does the preliminary change of ownership document really need to be completed and turned into escrow prior to closing? Can't the owner just sign it and have escrow complete the form?
Well, a lot of times we do get it back incomplete. And really, it's not escrow's obligation to complete it. I would encourage your buyers, I would encourage you to be familiar with the forms yourself and encourage your buyers to complete it, because basically that change of ownership form is a trigger to the county to reassess the property back to its current market value, and it's presumed that the sale price is a market value. But if you look at the form, there's all kinds of, there's a bunch of questions on the first page about the exclusions, opportunities for exclusions. If it's a sale or transfer between parents to child, if you fill out an exemption form, they don't have it reassessed. They don't have to pay that difference. If it's a grandparent to a child, again, there's an exemption. If you're a senior, 55 and older, or if it's a trust, transferring in and out of the trust, there's exclusions. So you want to encourage them to fill those out completely. The second page also, it talks about the sale price and if there's any property involved in the sale transaction, that brings down the base. So whatever as much as can be filled out, encourage them to fill out. And escrow really doesn't know the answers to all of those questions. And you don't want to depend that you have the escrow officer complete it correctly. What if it's wrong? What if you fill it out and it's wrong? And then the client comes back to you and says, you know, it shouldn't have been this much. We did this and this and this to the property, and it should have been less. So you really want to have them complete it, get some tax advice if they can. They can certainly call escrow and get some, maybe we can help walk them through it, but we're not tax advisors. And also, if the form is not completed and it's turned in to title, and they don't complete it, it's turned in again and it's not complete or it doesn't match, like addresses, maybe escrow, we think that it's going to be their principal residence. They tell us it's going to be the principal residence, but they're not actually having their mail sent there. The county, it's not completed, the county sends it back, and no one receives it to complete it. Then they send out another form, and if it's not completed within 90 days, they get a huge penalty. It can be either $100, or it can be up to $5,000 if there's an exemption, or $20,000 if there's not. So you really don't want to find yourself in that situation. You want to encourage them to always fill it out.
Perfect. Well, folks, before you have an expert panel of escrow folks. I think the most difficult thing is choosing which one to work with, because they all do a fantastic job. I've had the privilege of working with pretty much everyone here, and I can tell you they're a stellar group that you want on your team, so please, please continue to support your affiliates. We have have time now for a few questions, so some Q&A.
Is there a possibility that you can hide the sale price by not putting stamps, or what's the best way to do that if you don't want the sale price to be known public?
You can, just ask your escrow officer to, and the title company will have a form to protect,
Yes.
to cover it. You can do that.
So it's a form?
Yes.
You don't need to fill it out, just let escrow know so they can inform title and they'll have that.
It's a hidden documentary stamp tax form.
But they don't fill it out.
They don't fill it out, but escrow fill it out, but that's something that we provide for them, and it does conceal the transfer tax amount. So that normally you can figure out how much somebody paid by looking at the transfer tax amount, but it'll hide that amount.
Can you do it afterwards, when transactions done?
Once it's recorded?
It has to be done upon the close of the escrow.
I was just gonna add, the form is called, transfer tax is not a public record. So that's what the form is called.
Right, but it would have to happen at the time of transfer, so you can't do it after.
Okay. I have a question. I'm a lender, but I want to ask you, as far as power attorney, anyone can answer, can they sign the initial escrow instruction with power attorney? Because as far as the lender is concerned, we want the initial paper to be signed by the borrower. Can they sign? Oh, they could. Okay, and also I want to clarify something as far as earlier you were
Hold on, Sophia, but they're signing for a capacitated,
No, I'm just
absent
power attorney
person.
because somebody's out of town.
right,
They can, but the power of attorney should be a specific power of attorney to
Yes,
the
that's-
sale.
yeah.
And then it does need to be signed by,
Yeah, but some lenders require the borrower to sign initial paper, and then the final documents to be signed by specific power attorney is okay. Yeah, and then also talking about the recurring and non-recurring, most of the lenders have changed.
Okay,
So it
I'll
doesn't
repeat
really-
the question.
Yeah, yes, because, what
She's
you're
making, she
saying.
has a question about recurring and non-recurring close,
yeah. Right, because
credits.
if the agent is still requiring, putting down recurring and non-recurring, and the lenders are not, requiring, so check with the lender.
Wants to
Because
know
yeah,
what's the
right?
difference when
Yeah.
the agent or the
Right, because the
buyer
lenders
is
change the
requiring
policy.
and the lender is
Yeah,
requiring.
because it happens sometimes, you will have a non-recurring 10,000, and the closing cost is only 8,000, and the $2,000 is going back to the seller.
what I sometimes encourage my agents to do, to think about, is to put reoccurring and or non-reoccurring, and
Yeah,
that kind
that's
of
good,
covers,
yeah.
but then to explain to
Right,
their
right.
clients that if the whole credit is not used, if the
Right.
closing costs don't come up to that amount,
Is it
then
usually your idea or the agent's idea, putting recurring and non-recurring?
well,
It's the agent.
Whose idea, I mean,
The agent.
whose idea is, who
Yeah.
can suggest it? I guess that's a good question.
I kind of put it out there and then let them decide what they're gonna do.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to explain to everybody the transfer between relatives? The transfer, the property tax transfer?
If it's between parent and child or child to parent, there is a form, an exemption form called the OWN 88. And that form needs to be completed and filled out as far as what the relationship is and turned in with the PCOR.
Also the grandparent?
But from grandparent to grandchild, it's grandparent to grandchild, not vice versa. And then I believe the parent needs to be deceased.
Yes. The parent needs to be deceased.
Thank you.
Yes, we have a question in the back, if you could really project it.
Really fast. Seller's in Mexico, he can't come to this country, he has all documents out there. What is it that you require from a Mexican seller that can't come to this country but owns real estate here?
How did they get that property?
Well, I'll just tell you for a second. I'm buying the 2 units. He bought the property when he was legally in this country. He couldn't meet the qualifying guidelines for immigration, so they kicked him out of Mexico. He wants to sell the properties because he needs money. But, I mean, the agent doesn't even know what to do.
10%. Can he get a power of attorney signed at the U.S. Embassy?
That's what I was kind of thinking.
Well,
Yeah.
you could either do one of two things. Like she said, get a power of attorney from the Mexican embassy, or he could go to the American embassy with the grant deed that's going to need to be signed at the time of transfer. They could have that, take it, and then they can overnight the original back to title and escrow so that they can use that. He just needs to approve of the signature. I mean, he needs to sign before an American notary.
I kind of figured that to the American embassy. All right, then.
We had that in Bolivia. It's crazy. Yes.
Personal property tax, including the sales price. Do we have to pay sales tax on it?
Personal property tax, including the sales price, do we have to pay?
Because you could be excluded from assessor office.
Okay, that's a tax question that I think none of us up here can answer.
Well, I think it depends. You know, if the seller has a resale permit, then they have to probably charge that. They have to collect that taxes for the Board of Equalization. If the seller does not have a resale permit, then it's considered an occasional sale. So it's like, you know, that's kind of like in a bulk sale, when you do a business transfer, it kind of goes into that category.
Is escrow required to withhold sale tax?
Well, it depends. Like if the seller has a resale permit, then they do expect the taxes to be collected. If the seller does not have a resale permit, but if you're doing residential, you know, normally the seller wouldn't have a resale permit, right? Only if it's the transaction comes also with the transfer of the business. Then if they do hold the resale permit, then they are required to withhold those taxes. What we can do is we can withhold it for them and send it into the Board of Equalization, or they can send it in themselves. That would be their responsibility.
Yes, yes. Question, please, loud.
Okay, yes. Is it possible that escrow in the U.S. overseas a purchase of property overseas?
No. Our license is basically for the state of California. Yeah.
Right. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. We have time for 2 questions. We'll start with this gentleman over here. If you could loudly project your question, please.
Yeah, I'm trying to be creative. Coming up with some ideas. What's the base escrow fee that are in the escrow transactions? You know, the base escrow fee that you guys charge besides, you know, the tax.
You know what,
and
we do not, in our panel discussions, we do not discuss fees. You have to consult with them individually in order to do that. It's kind of like a law. We do not compete up here in front of the dais of a board. So thank you.
Well, basically, I wanted to ask if it's okay to give seniors a 10% discount.
Yeah, no. We already get movies off, okay?
Senior or minor?
Senior or minor, yeah, you should get a minor discount, right? We don't know how we're investing our money. Good question. Yes, Helen, do you have a question?
This question regarding PCOR, it happens recently quite often.
A little louder, Helen.
The clients fill out all completely the form and record it, of course. And then after the transaction, they kept receiving the form again from the county, again and again. Even they fill out again, they still send out second time. And then they give you the date and say if you don't submit at this time, and you have penalties. So some of the client maybe ask me, say, hey, why I received this one? And some maybe think, oh, I did already, so throw it away. And then that probably will cost their money. So what is the best suggestion?
Right, so you're saying that this has been situations where the PCOR was signed by the client from the get-go, they turn it in, and yet the county still returns a notice of an unsigned preliminary change of ownership. I would say that that's a county situation, correct?
It is.
Yeah. Well, all the more reason for folks to be informed about the preliminary change of ownership form, to keep in mind that it may happen that the county does send it back, or it may happen that they don't have clarification on how it was filled out. So make sure that you inform your clients that it may come back let them know exactly what it is, have them be as informed, so that when that happens, you'll know that it is a county problem, and it's not something that happened through escrow, and you can actually guide them and give a call to the county offices.
Just tell them never to throw it away.
Yes.
Keep sending it back or call the county because there's something missing. There's something more they need.
Right, all the escrow papers, and that's one of the things that we realize too, I guess, up as your closing meeting, that the people that are your clients, they don't hold on to paperwork that they possibly should have held on to. They don't hold on, they get a notice that their loan is paid, they get that letter that loan is paid, and they toss it out. They're just happy. They have a party, and then they throw that very important piece of paper away. So make sure that you encourage your clients to keep good records, to scan things, to help them out, scanning things and putting things on discs, coming to the new age. It's real important.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one thing I want to say though, you guys know Carol Kwan from the county, right? She is such a nice lady. She's very helpful. So keep her number, because she can really, like in situations like this, she could probably help. I call her for everything that I have when it comes to, the county's situations. So she has helped me a lot and helped my clients a lot. So she's very, very nice. So call her and she can help.
Vanessa, you wanted to say something?
I wanted to just inform everyone of a little situation that we had in escrow recently in regards to the city reports. Pasadena does have a city report, inspection report, and when you get it back, there may say there's minor corrections or major corrections, and you get those done in the assessor. When they're major, the inspector will come back out and make sure they're done. But when they're minor, like smoke detectors, that sort of thing, the form just says sign it, send it back in. There's no need for reinspection. And some of the forms do say, it does disclose about the sidewalk. And I don't know if everyone of you knows about the sidewalk, but sometimes it doesn't. And so when the inspector goes out, he may notice that there's some repairs that are needed, and it may not be on that inspection report. But when the seller goes to turn in the form, they will hold up the occupancy unless that sidewalk repair fee is paid. And the city will charge $10 per square foot. So you may have a very upset seller if they don't know about it. The situation was the city clerk told them that it was the agent's responsibility to inform them. So you may have a very upset client wanting to sue if you're not having yourself informed or letting them know, disclosing they want to take care of this as soon as possible, and your escrow might even get held up because of it, because it is a requirement to have that before close of escrow. And if you're not aware of it and you have a buyer maybe sign an amendment that they'll take on the responsibility, that buyer may come back at the agents as well, so be careful.
Thank you for all of that. Alina, Annie, Jacqueline, Vanessa, and Alba, you're the best of the best. Thank you for giving us your time and sharing all your great